Murderous Gearhulk is the last Gearhulk we will encounter in this set review, and it's not too shabby, to be honest with you. It sort of reminds me of that green dragon from the Kamigawa block. I don't remember its name, but it's kind of the opposite of that, I believe, as it distributes the counters when it enters the battlefield and not when it leaves. Of course, a 4/4 scramble with 5 is not horrible, and it can potentially be bigger if you decide to put some counters on it. But seriously, I'd expect this to be the biggest of the Gearhulks, you could say. And I guess you could say it could be if you got all the counters to it. But I'd expected it to be a little more, and without the counters, it is the smallest of the Gearhulks. Next up is a Planeswalker I didn't really expect to see, but we have another, that's right, another one, reiteration of Nissa. Honestly, this version of Nissa is not too bad. It does have a regrowth on it, or the regrowth ability, being the -3, and has the ability to make all your creatures into lands, if you wish them to be. The last ability seems a little bit underwhelming, but I think if you do draw lands late game, it will be helpful, especially for that sense. I honestly, off the top of my head, can't really think of any real deck archetypes in Standard that would really this will be fitting into. So honestly, I don't really think this is going to be that played that much, and that might be a shocker to some. But I feel like it's just okay. It's nothing mind-blowing or ordinary. It's just there. Hey, honestly, I feel like it would have been more exciting to see a reprint of Nissa, and considering that Nissa has quite a few copies of, well, herself, it kind of just makes sense. And wouldn't it be just nice to have instead of having a new version of a Planeswalker each set, have the return of an old one? Wouldn't that be fun? Speaking of more regrowth effects, we have Wildest Dreams, where if you have a lot of mana, you can get back a lot of cards in your graveyard. Although I don't really see the purpose of this thing exiling itself, although there are some cases where things returning from graveyards are really powerful. I don't really think this really needed to exile itself upon casting. I understood that more for something like Eldritch Evolution, because that can really get out of hand if you keep spamming it over and over. But this, I don't think it would be that bad. You'd have to have a lot of mana to really bust it wide open, is what I'm trying to say. Honestly, I really wanted there to be a way to make Dubious Challenge playable, but to be honest, I feel like your opponent's always going to pick the big creature no matter what. You'll have to find a way to make it useless or something like that over time, and maybe if there is a way to do that, then maybe this card will see play, but as of right now, I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. Next up, we have some pretty awesome green creatures in the form of Bristling Hydra. This thing will not only give you some energy counters, but it will also potentially get bigger over time if you have enough energy counters, and at the same time, it can make the life of the opponent who playing a control deck an absolute nightmare, because it will be really hard to kill unless they have a board wipe. But the point being, it's a great card for a mid-range deck, and it will likely see play in Standard at least. The good news is that, although you may not need them always, green does seem like it has a lot of ways to generate energy counters. And this is good considering a lot of their cards do need some energy to power for their effects. Long Tusk Cub seems like it's this set's green aggro creature, and as long as you're able to keep doing damage or getting energy counters, this thing will not stop growing. In short, it won't be small forever. I don't think too many players realize this, but Arborback Stomper is actually one half of a Thragtusk. It gives you 5 life upon entering the battlefield. And although Thragtusk will likely still be better for EDH, I feel like this could see some play potentially, although Thragtusk was definitely a lot better due to the fact of its leaving the battlefield trigger. This is not horrible either. Likely good for any EDH deck that needs another nice beast, or I guess you could say a mid-range deck in Standard that could use some more life. Blooming in the defense is essentially a more pushed Ranger's Guile, as now we have a +2/+2 boost with Hexproof. Huzzah! Pretty soon it'll just be Giant Growth with Hexproof next. Commencement of Festivities is just another fog, kind of similar to Defend the Hearth from Theros, but it might be nice to have an additional copy. You can always use spells like that for your Isochron Scepter. Returning is the classic Creeping Mole. Given the option to destroy an artifact, enchantment, or land has never been more satisfying or more retro in any way, shape, or form that I can think of. Although we may not always need them, takedown seems like an efficient way to take down a lot of flying creatures. Considering there are lots of Thopters in the set, this may actually be relevant at some point in the upcoming standard metagame. Mr. Spock, is that you?